Let's talk to Stephen Hammond. He's a Conservative MP for Wimbledon and joins us now. Good morning to you, Stephen.
Hi, Judy. Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So we've got all the latest announcement from the government, antisocial behaviour. Communities across England and Wales will see more police patrolling hotspot areas of antisocial behaviour. Perpetrators are going to face tougher, swifter consequences from this week. It's all part of the Prime Minister's action plan to crack down on antisocial behaviour and, quote, build stronger communities. Do you actually believe this is going to happen?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think that, I'm a London MP and I've met with Mark Rowley about a few weeks ago, Met Police Commissioner, to talk exactly about this sort of thing. Because Benedict's right. If you allow this low-level antisocial behaviour, crime not being reported or indeed being investigated, then it leads to bigger problems. So I had hundreds of people, just over 120 people came to a crime meeting I held last week or the week before with the local police. And absolutely key was antisocial behaviour, low-level crime, theft from cars. And so this hotspot approach has to be the right approach.
I love that it's always referred to as low-level crime. We've got basically we have a pandemic of shoplifting right now. Why? Because everyone knows up to £100, now it's up to £250. The police won't bother turning up. They won't get prosecuted. It's basically a free-for-all on our high streets. The message that sends out alone is so damaging to just the sense of community, to people's sense that the police are on their side. If we're not even prosecuting...
Right.
But Stephen, if we've currently got a police force and a Home Office that is not effectively encouraging, requiring the punishment of people who steal 200 quid's worth of stuff from a corner store, where that's the difference between profit and loss for that poor person who's probably got up at 5 in the morning to get that store open and has built that store up for their lives. If we're not even prosecuting that, what hope do we have they're going to be prosecuting some yowls who are sort of hanging around outside someone's home making too much noise at night?
Well, I think we have to look at what level we are prosecuting crime for, because as you rightly point out, that might drive that person out of business. And it is, you're right, I shouldn't have said low-level crime. It's crime, and it's crime that affects people. Yeah. It's people
stealing other people's stuff. When we ever describe that as low-level, we know we're in a very bad situation.
Well, we've started the tolerance, haven't we, which we should find unacceptable, because the crime should not happen. And if you allow that sort of crime to happen, then other crimes happen. And it's the same with antisocial behaviour. I'm pleased to hear that the government is going to with the police forces, put an emphasis on this, because it's the sort of thing that stops other, even worse antisocial behaviour happening.
Exactly. And again, a lot of this does tie in, doesn't it, with education. Now, I imagine you actually find it as painful as I do this morning. You're going to be agreeing with Keir Starmer when he's going to give this speech about how we need to teach children how to speak properly in school. We're not talking about, hello, my name's Jane and I'm from my local comp. I mean, we're just talking about the ability to put a coherent sentence together without the word like interspersing every single word and saying in it at the end of everything. And, maybe looking the person in the eye when you're speaking. These are basic skills. Why have they not been taught in schools?
Well, I think, didn't you... I was listening to you just before 8 o'clock, and it's a mixture of what's being taught in schools. There's also a mixture of what parents and how parents teach their children to interact with others. And Chris McGovern and you were right about that. Schools, a lot of good schools are all ready to have speakers' corners in primary schools. A lot of good schools have debating competitions. I've been to a number of state school debating competitions. Making it sort of, I suppose, into the national curriculum will mean it happens everywhere, and that's a good thing. But equally, parents, need to start with children at a much younger age. I was very fortunate. My parents started with me when I was 2 or 3, talking as you did, talking to your children. So it's not just the schools; it's others. If we want to have a literate, and as you say, I thought it was oral skills, but oracy isn't the new word.
Yeah, I'm genuinely...
In society, then we need to make sure that everybody's taking their part to ensure it happens.
Yeah, never heard that word before, but there we are. But Ofsted Chief Inspector Amanda Spielman, who's very sensible on pretty much all this stuff, saying treating schools as the solution to everything. And this goes from kids being, potty trained and taught how to sit, and hold a pencil at school, is putting education at risk, that we are expecting too much of our schools. They're basically picking up the job of parents who are failing. But when we do that, we're basically saying it's OK for parents not to bother doing this stuff.
And that clearly we need to turn the clock back, turn whatever. I don't mind how you describe it. But parents need to work with their children and with schools to recognise what role there is for parents, and there should be a strong role, because the family is the basis of our society. Whatever that family may be, a strong family background, a strong parental influence is really important for the upbringing and for the development of children.
Absolutely. Can I also ask you about these Just Stop Oil protests? We had them at the we've had them at the snooker, we've had them at the Rose, of course, but at the snooker, and then of course at the Ashes last test, and of course we had them at Wimbledon yesterday. It doesn't matter how much searching goes on, whatever new laws are brought in, they always seem to find a way to get through. I quite admire their ingenuity as much as I find them irritating, and frankly their argument is utterly ludicrous and I would say immoral. But how are we actually going to deal with this? Because the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, again, a sensible soul on all of this stuff. She pulled police force leaders, police chiefs in, event organisers and sports bodies in yesterday to have a conversation about how are we going to deal with this. What can be done to make sure that we don't have a bunch of Imogens and Tarquins ruining all of our national events?
Well, the police have asked for extra measures, and I'm sure Suella Braverman spoke to the police and to event organisers about that, about using the powers in the new public order bill. Everybody has the right to protest, but I don't believe they have the right to damage other people's work, damage other people's ability to get to work, damage other people's ability to enjoy themselves. And that is just selfish and unacceptable. So I'm pleased to see that the 3 people yesterday were arrested. I hope actually they get prosecuted under the new powers. Because if we don't use the powers that the people have asked for, then what's the point of us doing them? And they're there to make sure that they tell to others, yes, you can protest, but you shouldn't do it in a selfish way or the way it disrupts everybody else's life.
Indeed. Can I also ask you about one of your Conservative colleagues, Chris Pincher? He is the former Deputy Chief Whip. A report from the Privileges Committee, we hear a lot about them these days, is going to be published today. We are hearing that he could be facing an up to 6-week suspension of sitting days in Parliament. That will be enough to trigger a recall ballot in his seat in Tamworth, and we could therefore be seeing a by-election. Polls are showing yet another one of those by-elections we've got coming where we could see a Labour or other victory, certainly not the Tories keeping their seats. I mean, he may well stand down before that is the matter. But we've just seen an ongoing spate of cases where MPs of all sides, it must be said, with a huge number of MPs on the Labour side as well, problems the SNP and Lib Dems and others, where they're being accused of wrongdoing. This was a case of groping at the Carlton Club, something which is not being denied by Chris Pincher. Can I just ask, I worked in Parliament for many years. I was there attending an event with the Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the other night. But what is going on in the House of Commons? Does anyone get any work done anymore? Because it sounds like you're all just up to God knows what the entire time. Well, what's going on?
Well, I can tell you what's going on. I have a busy constituency day. I'm here on a 3-line whip today. Yesterday, I started at a similar time as I started today, talking to you. Most of my colleagues, and the vast majority of my colleagues, on all sides of the House are here working for their constituents, working to try and make this country a better place. Clearly, the behaviour that the Privileges Committee have been asked to investigate by a number of colleagues is unacceptable. And I have no more insight into what the Privileges Committee are going to say at 9 o'clock than you do, I'm afraid, Julia.
Well, indeed, we shall wait and see what happens there. But yet another by-election, more woes for your leader, Rishi Sunak. Stephen Hammond, good to talk to you, sir. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you being up at this hour to talk to us. It is suit and tie, Conservative MP for Wimbledon. Let me bring back in Benedict Spence. Chris Pincher, I mean, look, he's not a well-known figure. Frankly, I think we've got to the point, Benedict, where you're just like, oh, another MP accused of what? I mean, there are investigations into dozens of MPs on all sides. Yeah. I mean, we've had some serious wrongdoing on all sides. This is not just one party. But, of course, a prospect of by-elections, yet another one. We've already got 2 on the 20th of July, prospect of a couple more, and the SNP one from Margaret Ferry, if there is that recall. It is a spate of by-elections where often in seats which should be considered safe Tory seats, and it doesn't appear there is a safe Tory seat anymore. How much does this add to Rishi Sunak's problems this summer? Oh,
tremendously. But, he's already on a bit of a hiding to nothing. I do wonder if it's the fact that a lot of these are supposedly safe seats that perhaps persuades some MPs that they are somewhat untouchable because they've got a safe situation. But you asked the question, not unfairly, are MPs doing any work? And I would say, well, look around. It doesn't look like they're doing very much work. They haven't been doing it for a long time. There's this culture that has grown up where, I think actually this feeds into it, where MPs don't work particularly that hard, and there is an acceptance that they can get away with not putting...
I think being an MP is a terrible job. I think it's a 7-day-a-week job, and it's really, really hard.
I think it's a job that is not well suited to a lot of the people that are in it. I think that there are not a lot of resources to necessarily help them. I think there aren't enough parliamentary staff for the amount of stuff that's meant to go on. And because of that, I think a lot of them mentally clock out quite early in the day.
Frankly, unless you are working in Downing Street as a Prime Minister or an advisor, or you're a Cabinet Minister, you don't actually have any power to get anything done as a large role. Actually, I think it's part of the issue, isn't it? Really interesting to talk to you about that, Benedict. We're going to get to a break, then we're going to be getting some of your messages coming in about what you would teach children to help them succeed. This is Keir Starmer is saying he wants every child to have lessons in speaking, not public speaking, just being able to speak properly. This would be a start for a job interview. Wouldn't it help them, do you not think? We'll talk about that in just a few moments. We're also going to talk about, lessons in financial planning, because as interest rates head on up, the cost of living heading on up, we'll talk to economist Justin Urquhart-Stewart about what awaits us this summer and this autumn. This is Talk Breakfast.